Hi everyone, today I'm talking about Anno 1800, which is a 2020 release board game designed by Martin Wallace and published by Cosmos. This one accommodates 2 to 4 players and takes around 2 hours to play. Now, if you're familiar with Martin Wallace, he's pretty much known for his pretty epic, industrial and economic style board games, and this one is certainly in that style of game. And you also may recognize the title, as there is a pretty popular video game called Anno 1800, and I will say this review is based solely on this board game. I've never played the video game, so I can't compare or contrast with the video game. So let's take a look at what Anno 1800 is all about. So the table is going to look something like this when you play a game of Anno 1800, where you have this massive board in the center of the table where all players have access to. And as you can see, there's a bunch of these tiles, 2 tiles of each, and all these different spots depicting a wide array of different goods and boats and warehouses. You've got overalls, you've got trains, you've got silk, sausage, all these different goods, and they all kind of synergize with each other because this is essentially a massive tech tree where they all link together and you need certain goods to build other things. But I'll touch on that a bit later. You've got all these different population cards where you vary in their kind of sophistication as well. You've got the basic farmer and worker cards, and you've got the more kind of engineering ones. And these ones here that you get when you visit different parts of the world. You've also got these other objective cards here, these endeavor cards, which can give you potential points at the end, which I'll touch on a bit later. Every game is going to start with 5 of these objective cards, which are going to give you endgame points or abilities to use throughout the game. These particular cards are used or recommended for your initial game, and they do different things, such as, every animal you collect you get an additional point for, or every one of these new world tiles that you discover you're going to get 6 points for. This one lets you take bonus actions if you cash in these exploration tokens or gold. The person with the most engineers is going to get victory points. And for each of these kind of really hard to get industries that you build, you're going to get victory points for as well. So just something to build towards there. Also, every player is going to have their individual player boards, which are all identical, and a little workforce here. So you've got all these different cubes depicting different types of workers. So you've got your farmers, your workers, and I think these are like, I don't know what they are, craftsmen or something. And you see they've got different colours, and they can all kind of activate different worker spots on your player board here. So as you can see, the wood here, to get these to get the wood, you need to move one of these farmers to the spot. But to get these crates here, you're going to have to use one of your craftsmen, because you need the craftsmen to actually make the crates. And you've also got, at the bottom of the board, you've got these different ships you can use, and you've got these dockyards on the kind of waterfront here, and that's where they're kind of limited to be placed. So obviously boats can only go in water, and the dockyards have to go on the coastline, but buildings can go pretty much anywhere except the water, of course. And every player is also going to start with a bunch of these population cards. So you've got pretty basic ones like this, and you've got the more difficult ones like this. And the idea is that we are trying to get through a whole bunch of these cards, because the first player who gets rid of all their cards is going to activate the end game and get a bunch of points as well. So let's talk about how the game actually plays out. So if you can't tell by now, this game is all about getting victory points, and the main way you're going to do that is by fulfilling these population cards and by keeping your little colonists happy, I suppose. And as you can see, these cards are pretty easy and quite easily broken down in terms of what they want. So this one, for example, let's take a look at this one. This one wants crates and beer. And once I fulfill that as an action, I get to get a new craftsman as a reward and get this many victory points. And these vary in difficulty, and as you kind of get more cards, they're going to be a lot more hard to achieve and to fulfill their needs, basically. So let's take a look at what the actions are, because while this game is pretty involved, there's a lot going on, the actions themselves are pretty digestible, and there's only actually a few of them that you can choose from. Each turn is going to consist of taking 1 action out of a possible 6 or so. And I will say, even in that case, that most of these actions are going to be repeated, and a few of them you're not going to use very often at all. So again, pretty easy on the face of it. So I suppose the main action you're going to take is to expand, which is where you're going to bring new industries into your little town. So for example, we knew that population card needed a beer. So I could take a look at the beer card here, and I can see from the symbology here, this card needs a wheat and it needs a coal. So in order to acquire this tile, I'll go back to my player board and I will spend my resources or my workers to get that particular resource. So for example, the wheat is going to need a farmer to farm it, so I'll move it down here. And the coal is going to need a craftsman, so I'm going to have to move one of these red cubes to here to get that one as well. So as you can probably tell already, this game has a slightly different way of gathering your resources, because you are not actually collecting physical resources, you're just getting them here and now and using them instantly by moving these cubes around. So I've done that, I've got what I need. So I can take this beer tile now and I can flip it over like so and put it on my player board like I have here. And as you can see now, this allows me the ability to create beer. And to do that, I'm going to have to use one of my blue cubes to activate it. Another action is to play a population card. So now that we can make beer and we can already make crates because we've got that symbol already on our board, we can actually look at completing this population card. So what I'll do again is I would move a red token down in order to fulfill the crate objective. And then I need the beer one, because again, this card needs beer. So I can move a blue cube down and do that one. So now essentially I've completed the criteria of this card. And as a free action, I can choose to activate it when I want. I can use it now or later, but I see no reason why not to do this now. So I'll flip it over, which means I get this many victory points, but also I would take the reward shown on the card. So it's pretty simple contract fulfillment. And as you can see here, I'd get a new red cube ready to be used and deployed elsewhere. However, a bit of a twist on this game is that whenever you increase your population, like I have here, so I used to have 9 cubes, now I have 10, I will take a matching card of that type. So for example, a red one in this case, and add it to my pile, which means I've got a new population card to fulfill. So this is a pretty strange pacing about this game, where you are constantly chasing your tail, where whenever you increase your contracts, or increase your population, you're going to keep acquiring new cards. So at times it can feel like you're kind of swimming in treacle and not getting anywhere, but that is really part and parcel with what this game is about. You also have the ability to add new population or to improve the skill set of your population by paying certain resources. For example, to get a new farmer, I just have to spend a wood. So I could go like this, for example, and then I could add a new farmer cube to that set here, like so. Again, drawing the corresponding card if I'm increasing my population. Or I can actually upgrade one kind of skill to another. So I can move these green cubes up to a blue cube if I spend some brick. So again, I can look at my sheet here, spend a red cube, and then shift this chap up here like so, converting it to a blue. But of course, in this case, I haven't actually added any cubes. I've just shifted one to another, so I would not have to draw a card. And I will say that these can actually be used up to 3 times per action, so you can actually get a quick grab of population should you need to do that. As the game develops, you're going to quickly run out of space, so you're going to need to expand your town. And to do that, you are going to have to use the action to explore new lands. And to do that, you spend these exploration tokens. So let's say, for example, I spent my first exploration token. I'll just exhaust it by putting it off my board like this. And then I would go to a different tile that I need. So I can either explore the old world or the new world. And the old world are going to be pretty simple, where it's basically a new module to your player board, like so, which gives you more spaces to build into, and will also give you an instant bonus, for example, another red cube here. And as you can see, it gives me new sea land to build my ships into, new coast, and new building spots. So pretty simple. Now, something that's different about this, though, is that whenever you want to build the next one, because that'll be my second old world tile, I need to spend 2 exploration tokens, and then 3, and then 4, and so on, as long as I could afford them. Now, also, you can explore the new lands, or the kind of other colonies, I suppose. And to do that, you draw the top 3 of these and pick the one you want. But let's say, for example, I just chose this one. Again, I would add it to my player board, and this basically gives me the access to these different colonies where I can trade, or spend these trade tokens. As you can see, I've got 2 trade ships and my exploration ship that I've just used. And to do that, I could get these certain type of goods, or these exotic goods, such as, you can get like coffee or tobacco or cotton, all these different things that you'd need to go to exotic places to get. So that's a real nice tool to have, and gives you the flexibility of not having to buy the industry, but actually having to just trade with other places to get access to those. You also have the option to spend 2 of these exploration tokens to draw up to 3 of these endeavour cards. So for example, let's say I've just drawn 1 here as just an example. These are ways to get additional points at the end of the game, depending on the workforce you have available to you. So as you can see, in the left hand side, you've got like an animal, and in the right, you've got an artifact. And all this means is that if I had these cubes left in my kind of population, I can assign them to these different spots in order to get victory points. So let's say I had a red left at the end of the game, I could put it here to get an additional point. But of course, if I had these really hard to get workers, then I can get more points here, and these will often synergize with the end game bonuses here. So for example, in this particular setup, all my animals are going to give me an additional point if I have that completed. So a nice incentive to go for there. Another action is to switch some of these population cards if you're not happy with them. So you can select up to 3 of them, which maybe you don't think you can fulfill or are just too difficult for you. And you can put them to the bottom of their respective decks and draw that same amount back to hopefully give you something that you can achieve. So it gives you a little bit of flexibility there. And the final action you can take is to celebrate a festival. And that is how you reset all of your cubes. So for example, here I'd allocated all my different workers all over my village. So I could, as a single action, I can switch all of them back to their starting spaces and be ready to go again. And something I should say as well is that when that happens, all your different tokens from your ships will also refresh, giving you the options to explore and trade, which I'll touch on now. So let's talk about how trading works. So let's say, for example, I wanted to fulfill this population card, and as we knew from earlier, I can produce beer, but I can't produce these bottles. So as normal, I would allocate my beer like so. But in order to get that bottle, I can have a look if my opponents can make them. Let's say, for example, this player here has already invested in making these bottles. I can actually spend one of my trade tokens by exhausting it. And I can choose to basically piggyback off the investment of other players. Now, this player would not have any say in that at all. They can't say, they can't veto it and can't say no. However, they will be compensated if I do that by getting a gold. And gold is really useful because it allows you as a free action to reallocate your kind of allocated workers back to their initial spot. So for example, if I spent a gold, I could shift this blue cube straight back up to here, ready to be deployed again, and meaning I don't have to waste a whole turn to celebrate a festival. So trading is a big part of this game. You want to have the ability and the capacity to build more ships, to trade more and more, so you don't have to waste your time investing in industries that you don't particularly want, but just want to use maybe as a one-off and a quick smash grab. So that is pretty much how Anno 1800 plays in its kind of purest form. It's all about trying to get these people fulfilled. The first person to complete all their cards is going to take this 7-point token and trigger the end of the game. However, there is quite a few hoops you might need to jump through in order to actually satisfy these people. For example, this chap here, he needs some cigars, he needs some steel, and he needs a penny farthing as well. Now, cigars you can build, but you're going to need the tobacco to put in those cigars, which means that you're going to probably have to explore a new world in order to trade to get that. So it's not something you have instant access to. You're going to have to go find that tobacco in the first place. So you can probably imagine that's going to take a bit of work, because you might need the ships in order to do that. And to buy the ships, you're going to need steel, you're going to need sails, you're going to need cannons if you want to go explore somewhere else. And to build cannons, you're going to need steel, and you're going to need different things. So it's all about these tech trees. And I'll also talk you through another kind of more involved tech tree. So as you can see, he also needs penny farthings. I take a look at the main board here. Yes, we can build penny farthings, which needs steel, it needs rubber, but it also needs one of these investors. And investors are basically the rarest type of cube you can get. And to do that, you're going to need all these different resources in order to build one of which is being one of these kind of rich clothes or these gowns. And we can build these gowns, but to build these gowns, we're going to need a sewing machine. And to build a sewing machine, we're going to need brass, we're going to need an engineer, we're going to need steel. And we're also going to need silk, etc. And to get the silk, we're going to need the cotton, which again, we're going to need to go explore somewhere else to get that. So you can probably imagine there's quite a few hoops you need to jump through, a lot of things you need to line up and start building towards things and actually to get these done. And as you go through these things, you might be acquiring more population, which is getting you more cards. It's all about tinkering your population to get the ones that you need, get the engineers down so you can build the more sophisticated equipment, but also get the investors down in order to get the real luxury goods that you might need as well. So yeah, there's a lot of There's a lot of nuance and a lot of paths you need to follow in order to get these things fulfilled. So there are a ton of decisions to be made throughout Anno 1800. How are you going to deploy your workforce, and whether you are going to keep using your gold to refresh them, or of course you're going to waste your whole turn to refresh everything, and potentially give your opponent the leg up and the heads up in the race to get those cards fulfilled. Also the order in which you're going to get these done, because of course they all have different bonuses, some of which is going to give you more population, some of which is going to give you gold, which is of course good because it lets you refresh your workforce, and even ones like this that let you actually get rid of cards, which again will give you that kind of leg up in getting all your cards completed. They're all going to need different types of goods, so it's all about trying to invest in the type of industries that are going to give you the most benefit. For example, I've got a few cards here that need these tins, so of course building tins might be useful for me, so I'm not so dependent on trading with other players and giving them a bit of a bonus by giving them gold. So it's all about the order in which you do these as well. And of course, you're going to get advantages by getting new cubes and stuff, and different bonuses such as more trade tokens, which are all going to be great. But again, the order is going to be so important. Now, I will say that something that is kind of unavoidable and something you're going to have to get your head around is the pacing of this game, because unlike most Euro-style games, you don't have a certain set of rounds or anything like that. It is until somebody completes all of their population cards. And you've got to appreciate that this can be frustrating at times, because you're going to start with 9 cards and there will be times where you almost double that value and have so many cards that you just think you cannot get through. And I can appreciate why people might not like that. They might find that a bit frustrating and it feels like you're kind of chasing your own tail and not getting anywhere. But I think you've got to trust in the system here, trust in the design prowess of Martin Wallace. Because he does know what he's doing, and you will actually end up catching up on yourself and building an efficient engine in terms of getting these people happy, getting them squared away as points. So bear that in mind, that the pacing is a little bit weird. It can feel like it's dragging on and on and on, and you're not getting anywhere, but you will eventually do that. And I think that's going to be one of the most polarizing parts of the game. People are going to find that maybe boring, going to find it a bit overwhelming. I do enjoy this resource system where you are shifting cubes around rather than having to have a big cache of all the different resources. So it's a nice different and a refreshing approach of how to handle resource management. I think it's really well done, and not only are you bearing in mind the things that you can produce, but also the people who can use them in the first place. Because if you have a bunch of industries that need engineers to use them, and you only have one engineer, then you're not going to be very efficient. So you're going to have to start investing in upgrading them or bringing new engineers in, which of course is going to cost you more time and more resources and more investment to do that. So it's all about kind of following these pathways and trying to map out what you're going to do. Are you going to focus on a strong workforce? Are you going to focus on a strong kind of naval kind of approach in terms of getting more traders in or more exploration in to explore these new places to get these endeavour cards? So lots of paths you can take, but of course you are somewhat tunnel visioned and guided by the population cards that you need to fulfill. And something that I should say as well is, just because somebody might fulfill all the cards before you do and get that bonus 7 points, it's not purely a race game, because, even though you don't finish your cards, you could still have acquired more points than the other players did. So bear that in mind. I appreciate the way this game is condensed down into just a few actions, because this is a broad game. There's a wide scope here, lots of things going on. And this could have gone down that rabbit hole of having loads of rules minutiae, loads of fiddliness, and it actually got around that very well. So I'm actually quite impressed about how just those 6 or so actions you can take, and most of them being the same in terms of just using your cubes to build things, to fulfill cards, and to reset your workforce. So yeah, I love the way that the actual rules themselves are easy to explain. However, the tech trees are a different story completely, but that's where the gameplay really shines. The game does take around 2 hours to play, but of course that could go longer, it could go shorter based on the idea that it's the first person to fulfill these cards. And that's something that's going to be to a personal taste. If you've got the 2 hours to spare, then you can sink your teeth into it, you can enjoy the process. However, because it's not that deterministic, it could end up going 3 hours, it could end up just being 1 hour, then you've got to make sure you have that free time to explore this game to its max. And I will say that for me, it did maybe slightly outstay its welcome in terms of being just a little bit too long, especially because you do feel like you are, constantly battling and going through the motions to get these cards completed. That's probably one of the only criticisms I have, is that game length is just a little bit too long for me. A nice maybe 10-20% off that game length would have been a lot more comfortable for me personally. And I would actually like to see a different end game trigger, because I don't feel like this system is entirely necessary. I think it could have been something else in order to trigger the end game, to give you that more fixed time, that time frame. But maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's some balance issue there. But I'm not sold on this end game trigger, and I think it could have been different. The replayability is relatively good. I mean, while you are going to have access to everything at all times, you are of course subject to the cards available to you, so you're going to have to go down different routes in order to get them done. So you will inevitably have to go something else and do something different from game to game. Of course, you've got all these different end game scores here, bonuses you can do, and there's a pretty wide variation of ones you can get. You've got a nice big deck of cards to change it from game to game, and these do change the flavour quite a bit and give you different things to work towards. So I like the different ways you can expand your replayability here. Additionally, the player interaction is, you can't ignore it, although it's not terribly strong. Because you are pretty much doing your own thing, building your own engine, building your own little network. That idea of trade is, it's unavoidable. You need to piggyback off the other players because, you need the access to the industries that they have, because there is actually only 2 tiles of each of these industries, meaning that if you're playing more than a 2-player game at least, then you're going to have to use somebody else's. And, while that's not massive interaction, it's just enough to give, just to give you a little bit of a thought, am I going to use my trade token to do that? Because these trade tokens are pretty scarce. But also, my opponent is going to get a gold bar, which is going to make them more efficient. So just that little wrinkle of player interaction is nice, and I think it's pretty well done. The production of the game is pretty decent. All the actual components are of a good quality. The cardboard stock is pretty good. The cards are okay. They're a little bit flimsy. The player boards are decent, and all stuff like that is absolutely fine. The artwork itself is somewhat polarizing. Now, I don't overly dislike it, but I can see if some people would, because it almost looks like they're renders from the computer game. I don't know if this is the case or not. It's not exactly real inviting and endearing artwork. It's pretty much pretty soulless, and almost feels like it's a rendering of a graphic image or a computerized image. Now, it's nice that all these cards are individual. They're all independent of one another. There's no repetition or anything. So that's all nice. You've got nice characterful art here, and that's quite good. But yeah, I'm not overly sold on the artwork, but I don't dislike it either. But the production in its entirety is more than fine. The scalability of Anno 1800 is also pretty good. I mean, you're going to be able to play this 2 to 4 players, and to be honest, each player's turn doesn't take particularly long, so you're not going to extend the game length too much by inviting more players into it. And because ultimately the turns are quick, you're going to take or resolve your turns quickly. But the game is dictated by the fastest player. Of course, the first person to complete all their objectives is going to trigger the end. So again, you're always going at the pace of the fastest player. So slow players aren't going to slow you down if they're kind of still doing their little engine and you finished yours. So overall, I'm actually really impressed by Anno 1800, particularly by the way these tech trees work. I think they're fascinating, and it's just, as I said, it's real logical behind what you're doing. And I like things like that. I like the way that things are strung together, and you have to go down these certain pathways in order to get all these people done in the most efficient way possible. I like how you can piggyback off other players, but give them a small incentive. I like the way you have to manage your workforce, at the same time considering the Endeavour cards, at the same time considering these endgame objective cards. So pretty much all the Euro goodness that you would like, with that Martin Wallace sprinkle of industry and economy, which I personally really enjoy, and I'm starting to really dig into that style of games and kind of find out that kind of game is for me. So yeah, I'm really excited about trying more Martin Wallace designs, especially if they're up to this standard. Now, despite all those great things, and again, this is a great game, there are a few little things that I have, particularly the pacing of the game. I would have again, I'd love to see a different way this game ends, and I think there is something out there which is going to do that, and maybe an expansion in the future is going to fix that. Alternatively, the setup of this game takes quite long. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of tiles here, and it's going to be somewhat of an obstacle to overcome. And it's a bit of a faff in order to get all these down on the table, all on their matching spots, and of course, they're all completely necessary for the game. I think maybe it could be argued that this could be condensed down into maybe 2/3 of these and create smaller tech trees. But I think if you're digging into this style of game, you're going to want the whole plateau and the whole buffet of different industries available to you. So personally, I don't dislike that, but I can see why a lot of people might. But yeah, overall, this is such a solid game. It's streamlined to a great degree by just boiling them down into those few actions. I love the way you can't ignore things. Building your kind of sea force, building your more your warehouses and your shipyards on the waterfront in order to build more boats, getting the industries you want, knowing what your opponents can have, and knowing you have the trade tokens to use them, having a steady income of gold yourself so that you can not have to waste turns in order to refresh all your actions. Just so much to enjoy here, just loads of decisions from start to finish, and it's just a great game that you'd expect from Martin Wallace. So this is certainly a shield of quality candidate, and I'm really excited to see what this game has to offer in the future, because I think there's a lot of scope for expansion content here, and I'm excited to see what that is. So that concludes my thoughts on Anno 1800. Definitely check this one out if you are a Martin Wallace fan. It's a good one. So if you have enjoyed this review, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.